There we go. All right. I tried to stream from OBS on my main on my PC, and for some reason I couldn't get sound coming out of my microphone. I don't know why. So yeah, so I have to stream from the PS4 for now, unfortunately. But yeah, I wanted to get into this discussion, and so first I want to invite everybody from 2K Gamer into the discussion. Uh, First and foremost. All right, here we go. Cam Powell, Spatial Jones, TJFRS, D97. We haven't had a straight up discussion in a long time. I've been doing a lot of these card display streams and a couple things here and there. So this is going to be a real discussion. You guys can just settle in. I'm actually working as I do this. So there's not going to be any gameplay on screen because I'm literally drawing comics behind the scenes as we speak here. But yeah, so I wanted to get into this discussion of an equalizer, or what people call the algorithm in the game. So first things first, to just establish, there are algorithms in the game, obviously, right? So what we mean when we say algorithm, what's up, Carson Cruz? Oh, no problem, man. I'm happy to be here. So when we talk about an algorithm in the game, what we specifically mean is an algorithm that is in place to move things around artificially to balance the competition between whoever's losing versus whoever's winning. All right, so I'm not going to discuss that yet. We're going to go to that later. First, let's talk about the overall concept of the equalizer. So that the algorithm basically describes the equalizer. Now, people say the reason they would put it in the game is so that low-skilled users can feel like they have a chance against higher skilled users, or users with a lower card ranking can feel like they have a chance versus people with better decks. Now, the thing that I've heard about this in specificity was, playing against all bronzes, and they're getting stuff that they're not supposed to be getting. Okay, so my question to the people who say that would be, do you think you have a better chance of competing with an all bronze team rather than having a God Squad team? So that's just an open-ended question that you guys can hopefully get to at some point and answer it. So, okay, so here we go. Average human life. Okay, so here we go. All random shots and they all went in. You said when you had not that good of a team, but not bad. PD Diamonds. Okay, so I want to address this first point. Someone in the conversation on 2K Gamer, which is where this is all erupted from, I honestly had never heard of an equalizer until joining the 2K Gamer forums, because I do come from Pro-Am and Park, and in that community, no one thinks about the game as having an equalizer. So the understanding in that community is that 2K is a fairly random game, and that there is a bit of luck involved in victory and defeat. Right? So if you can lose to a team that's slightly worse than you if you have bad luck, and you could beat a team that's slightly better than you if you have good luck. But the randomness is not going to overcome a significant skill gap, right? It would be very, 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 very rare in 2K for a bad Pro-Am team or even a bad Park team to beat very, very good players. And this is displayed by the records of very good players, right? Like Poor Boy Sin, I don't know what his record is right now, but he's usually something to the effect of 10,000 and 900 or something like that, right? He wins well over 90% of his games and is just an overall monster. And so that shows definitively that EQ doesn't overcome a wide skill gap if it exists, right? We can talk about that part definitively. Can I look at Sharif Abdurrahim in the auction house? I think I can. Let me see. I'm on my computer. I'm not even on my PlayStation screen right now, so I'm on a massive delay if I try to do that. But yeah, I can do that in the background here. But yeah, You said, should you sell your Opal KD since he's 500k? I think that depends entirely on how much you like the card. I have thought about it because I would make a pretty big profit on that card. I don't remember exactly what I got him for, but it was well under 500k. And I feel like, oh man, I'd really profit. And that would be a big splash to my, my MT. But I just can't bring myself to do it. I like the card too much. The card's too unique. He has too many unique animations that I really like. I don't feel like he's replaceable. So until he's replaceable, I won't sell him, and I'm satisfied with selling him at a bit of a loss, with the risk that I will always have him in my collection if he's never duplicated, right? And they're not going to put out a KD card significantly better than this one because he's basically juiced in every way. Okay, Dope D says, when you play against the AI on Hall of Fame difficulty, it's ridiculous to make some unbelievable shots. I totally agree with that. And there's one thing that I have noticed in the game, and this is anecdotal evidence, but if the AI doesn't score for a very, very long time, it does seem like they will get a completely nonsensical shot to go in. That having been said, I'm not prepared to call that an equalizer because I have personally been leading by a lot and watch the AI hit 2 half-court shots or a highly contested three-pointer. I've also been down and had them do that. And I've also been in close games and had them do that. I won't really say down, but mostly close games and stuff like that, right? Haven't been down too much against the AI to have a big sample size. But I have seen that repeatedly. So this brings me to my first point about the equalizer. We have to suss out what can be differentiated between the equalizer and the randomness of 2K. And that's the number one point, is that 2K is a random game. It is a random factor. It's not like, and this is the constant discussion about, shooting, right? The problem with shooting is that if you take 10 shots, right, and 5 of them are contested and 5 of them are uncontested, and you say the uncontested shots all go in and the contested shots all miss, this feels very static and it doesn't feel like real basketball, because in real basketball some contested shots go in and some contested shots miss. So if you never have highly contested shots go in, you don't get those hero moments, right? And if you have every single open shot go in, there's not really a differentiation between good shooters and bad shooters, because wide open means a shot go in. The problem is, once you add all of the circumstances in, right? So you take good shooters, bad shooters, contested shots that shouldn't have gone in, open shots that were wide open, full white that should have gone in, out of a 10 shot or even 100 shot sample, you can have a situation where the game feels really random, right? So the only way to solve that is to consistently get full greens with wide open shots a lot more than your opponent does. That's the only way to average out the randomness. And this is why Park and Pro-Am players don't talk about an equalizer, because all of their tactics, everything, the peekaboo, all of the dribbling stuff, the dunking, the rim running, everything is engineered to create a consistent advantage, so that even when you get screwed by the luck, when the luck doesn't go that way, when you get 3 full whites in a row, guys, understand, 3 full whites in a row doesn't raise your chances of hitting each full white. Each full white had a very high chance of going in. It's just that the game will not allow you to make 100% of your shots on a consistent basis. Now, in a small sample size, you can green every shot, but over the course of several shots, some of your perfectly timed shots will miss. And this is to prevent a 100% game. Like, they don't want 100%. And honestly, I don't even know if I can complain about that entirely, because I've never seen a basketball game where even the best shooters in the world have made 100% of their wide open shots, and they're trying to release them to the best of their ability as well. So I'm willing to say there needs to be some randomness in 2K. The problem is 2K too random? So here's another thing that adds to the randomness of 2K. The 2P animation system, right? So the 2P animation system, and this is all important before we get to the equalizer thing, right? Because you have to understand what is definitely in the game, and you have to be able to interpret the information of what is in the game in order for you to then look at an extraneous factor like the equalizer and ask what it's doing, right? So the 2P animation system. The 2P animation system is very unreliable and janky right now. You get a lot. So one person said, sometimes players will speed up and blah, blah, blah. Well, usually a speed up, almost all the time actually, is the result of the 2P animation system taking over. And the problem is the 2P animation system doesn't care about your players' ratings, right? So you're going to get, whether you're up, whether you're down, whether you're tied, good players, bad players, you are 100% over the course of a lot of 2K games going to get a lot of erroneous speed up and slow down animations because of the 2P animation system, where they're trying to speed themselves into these two-player actions, right? So, and that's random because you don't get the same exact two-player actions all the time. Here's another random factor when it comes to animations. And when I say random, I mean it's truly random. There's no way to reproduce the same exact animation all the time. And this is when you go for blocks, right? Sometimes when you go for blocks, your players will go for the ball and they'll target it perfectly and all that other stuff. Other times when you go for blocks, your player will fly away from the player that they're trying to block. And that's random. That's totally random, right? So if you're losing and that happens to you, you may feel like it was an equalizer. But the truth of the matter is that happens when you're winning too. And here's a part of the discussion where it's not going to make a lot of people happy. But we're looking at all sides of this. I'm not here to entirely debunk the equalizer thing. I'm also not here to prove the equalizer thing. I'm here to raise the level of the discussion. That's always my goal, is to raise the level of the discussion, right? So understanding that 2K is a very random game. It is not a high skill game. It's not Street Fighter. It's not Rainbow Six. The best player isn't going to win by the same margin every time based on their performance. The margin of victory from a bad player to a good player, or in that case the margin of defeat, is going to shift a little bit up and down based on some of that randomness. But evidence shows, and I say evidence shows, right? This is hard evidence that people in the chat are agreeing with this. If the skill gap is wide enough, there's nothing in the game's coding that allows you to win over an opponent that is significantly better than you, right? If you're playing an opponent that's significantly better, they will basically always win. And we actually can prove this in the MyTeam capacity when we watch streamers, right? Ty Debo and guys like RCA the Great, they go 12-0 all the time, right? They go 12-0 so much that they can monetize it. And usually when they don't go 12-0, it happens just as often because of a network issue as it does because of someone actually being better than them. And when someone is, I won't say better than them, but when someone is close enough in their skill level to win the game, those guys are pretty forthcoming about their mistakes, right? And so this, using the pros as a control, right, using the best players in the game as an example, I would then say, are you also following that same metric, right? Because those guys, because of their larger skill gap between them and their opponent, they have a certain amount of control. And when I say control, I mean in the scientific way, right? The way you do an experiment. You do an experiment by you have a way the thing always works. And the large skill gap of the higher level, tournament level players is the closest thing you can get to a control in 2K. And so for them, the way they account for their wins and losses is usually their personal performance, right? Usually. Sometimes they'll say, I just didn't get enough of my whites to go in. He just got more whites than me. But they'll usually credit their opponent in that situation as well. Again, I'm talking about the really, really high level people. No offense to other YouTubers or streamers who are like in that solid level, but I'm not talking about the guys who are pretty good, because when you're pretty good, you're going to come up against an opponent of equal or better skill maybe 30% of the time, which is enough of the time for you to constantly experience the randomness of 2K. But when you're way better than your opponent and you only come up to someone of relatively equal skill once in a while, then you are not really subject to the randomizer. And so the question I would ask to everybody who does believe in the randomizer is, are you looking at how many mistakes you made during the game? And this isn't just a 2K thing. Right? This is also the thing in Overwatch, because in Overwatch, the randomizer was the matchmaking. Okay, and so when people would get bad matchmaking, oh, I got this Genji who's trolling and blah, blah, blah. Well, it was like, yeah, that is not a fair thing for you, and that doesn't feel good, and it doesn't equate to a balanced gaming experience. However, that's also, if you play all day, that's also happening to everybody that you play against. So if you play enough games, that was the thing in Overwatch. If you play like 5 games, you can get a super random experience where you got trolls over here, throwers over there, one good game, and so your level gaining would be really bad, right? Your win-loss record would not be an indicator of your skill because of how random your experience was. But they say if you play 100 games, well, at this point, all of that stuff is happening to other people just as much. So now what you want to do is you got to play the game a lot, and you got to look at your own skill. So with 2K, it's more about looking at your own skill because there's not really a, solid matchmaking mechanic. So I got to ask the people who believe in the randomizer, not the randomizer, in the equalizer, are you looking at how many mistakes you make during a game and honestly assessing that situation, right? So with all of that having been said, here's the deal with what we know about the equalizer. First and foremost, it absolutely has to be said out loud. The developers have completely denied that there's any equalizer in the game, right? According to the developers, there's no equalizer. Now, some people are going to say, well, of course they're lying. It's not in their best interest to tell you and disclose that there's an equalizer in the game. Fair enough. However, the developers haven't simply denied that there's an equalizer. They've also discussed why there's no equalizer. And it actually has nothing to do with a desire to have it in or desire to not have it in. It more has to do with the fact that 2K is a very complicated, disjointed game. And this would be honestly, beyond even the developer's word, which, like we said, they could be just told to lie about it, right? Somebody with a lot of money, a shareholder, could be like, never disclose the equalizer. It's in your contract, right? And then they have to lie about it. That's fair. That's plausible. I don't think that's the case, but that's plausible. But the thing about it is, if you guys play 2K, literally everything in this game has broken down at some point. What's up, Jason? Literally everything in this game has completely broken down at some point. And if the equalizer is in the game, it would be the one thing that has never completely broken. The one thing that has never launched in a state where, people with diamond squads versus bronze squads just can't hit 3-point shots because the equalizer is completely broken. Okay? So I think that is worth noting that if the equalizer is real, you're giving 2K credit for finally getting something to work right all the time, which I find to be the least believable thing out of all of the equalizer arguments. But when we go into this discussion, you have to understand the level of randomness. We got into this big argument on Twitter with this guy. It was me and Brian Mazik. And the guy was saying he spent basically like, I don't know, $300-400 on packs or something like that. It was something like millions of MT, right? Millions of MT. And he said he didn't get a Galaxy Opal. The odds are rigged and blah, blah, blah. Manute Bowl is just not coming out of packs. 2K is turning the knob up and turning the knob down, and they just shut it off. Now, at the time of this, there were a pretty decent amount of bowl bowls. There was a pretty decent amount of bowls in the marketplace. So my thing is, well, that's just how odds work, right? When the odds work against you and you are on the wrong side of the equation, you think something's wrong. This is called, and not to get too scientific about this, but if we want to have a real discussion, we got to put our grown-up pants on when we're discussing it. It's called cognitive negative bias, right? And it's basically you look for a reason that you're being screwed when something doesn't go your way. It has to be some purpose behind it. It has to be some goal. It can't just be that you simply had bad luck. But the thing is, nobody asks, is 2K rigging it when they pulled one pack and got a Galaxy Opal, right? Like just a couple of weeks ago, on my personal account, I pulled one pack and I got Pink Diamond Paul George. 200,000 MT for nothing on an account I wasn't even playing anymore. Am I seriously asking, is 2K giving me this Paul George to get me back to play the game? No, it was just good luck. It was just good luck, man. That's all it was. So sometimes things are just good luck and just bad luck. And you have to be honest about whether or not that's the case. Because if randomness is in the game, you have to be able to draw the line at some point and say randomness stops here and the equalizer begins here. You know what I'm saying? And if you can't draw that line, then randomness really is the answer to a lot of the stuff that happens in the game. So now let's talk about the equalizer from a technical standpoint, right? So some people think that this is tied to dynamic multiplayer difficulty to engage lower rated users and allow them to compete with higher rated, more skilled users. Okay. I have to say, I have not seen any evidence of that myself in the many streams that I've watched, but usually when people are streaming, there's a fairly significant skill gap between them and the average player, right? Well, I mean, them and the low skilled player. So if someone's coming up to you with a bronze team and you're struggling versus them, or they're getting stuff that you feel like they don't deserve, why is it that when we see streamers of all skill levels, really, because every streamer isn't Ty Debo, right? Why is it that when we see streamers and those bronze squads come up, they just absolutely demolish them? Why is it that for good players, using the God squads is the most reliable thing for them, because they'll have the players that will allow them to execute their skill? And why are there so many blowouts in 2K? It doesn't seem like there's an overabundance of close games to justify this equalizer. So that's another question I have for you guys is so people say they don't know when the equalizer is kicking in. If the equalizer is a randomness, then the 2K is random, right? There's no way around that. 2K is a random game. But if 2K is specifically saying you're winning and your opponent is having a bad experience, so I'm going to make it so that you miss more full whites and they make more full whites, if that's what's happening, I need a description of what triggers that. Why does that kick in? You know, what makes that happen? Because without a description of exactly how that's working, we can't discuss why that may or may not be working. One thing I can tell you is that it would be very, very difficult for 2K to have an equalizer be consistent when it comes to animations, because the animation systems are all over the place, right? The animation system isn't just one box that says animations go here. It's an integrated network of communications between they're animating in this situation, they're animating in that situation. They're doing this, they're doing that. They're in a 2P, they're not in a 2P. They're responding to the ball being in the air, they're not responding to the ball being in the air, right? All of these things, it's very complex. It's not a simple thing that you can just say, I'm going to push a button and you're going to get the quote-unquote bad animations. While I do believe that the game understands to some extent, what the bad and good and cheesy and BS animations are, I have not seen evidence of the game turning them on and off. What I've seen more often is just bad animations being successful than anything else. You know, so a terrible layup goes in. That I'll see happen. But I haven't seen, so somebody put up a video on 2K Gamer. This is proof of an equalizer, and they switched to Tim Duncan and he shifted out of the way. I don't buy that video as evidence, simply because that's a consistent problem I have with the game. And this happens when I'm up, when I'm down, when it's tied, when I'm up by a lot, when I'm down. Well, again, not really down by a lot in a large sample size, but no matter what the situation is, when I switch players, sometimes they shift out of place. It's just a bad mechanic in the game. I don't know why that happens, but it happens a lot. Especially if someone's going to the basket. If someone's going to the basket, you switch to the help, and if you switch a little too late, they will actually slide into worse position and kind of screw you over. So while I agree that it sucks that happened, I don't think that it happened specifically because 2K was like, the other guy needs some help or whatever it is. So that's pretty much that in terms of the equalizer thing. The devs have come out and said right away that they don't have an equalizer in the game. There's no real point for them to put it in the game. And this isn't just the establishment guys who've said this. This is guys I can't go into details, but they've said it publicly. Don't get me wrong, but there's, from all levels and all situations, there's no equalizer in the game. It's something that 2K feels like, but that's just a product of it feeling like the game is of a random feeling game. That's what random means. Like, I think a lot of people struggle with the concept and the experience of randomness. Right? The experience of randomness is sometimes it just feels like stuff is wild and crazy. So let's discuss another thing, the card tiers argument. So a lot of people will say, well, I have all Galaxy Opals and this guy has all diamonds. How is he even keeping up with me in this regard and that regard? Guys, in this year especially, diamonds are not a step ahead of the Galaxy Opal. I mean, a step behind the Galaxy Opals by any significant amount. I promise you, if a player, let's say if we were to regard skill tiers, you know, A minus, blah, blah, blah. If an A minus player is playing against an A player, and the A player has diamond cards and the A minus player has Galaxy Opal cards, the A minus player is probably still going to lose, depending on which diamonds you have. You know, some of those diamonds are really outstanding and basically still do everything really, really well. And that's been my argument in a lot of card breakdowns from the very beginning of the year. Is some of these cards are endgame cards because once a card shoots from range extender range and has a 99 speed, there's nothing you can do to another card to make them significantly better. So we've been, for the 2 guard position and for the point guard position, and the small forward position, we've been in the end game for a really, really long time because those cards got juiced really early, right? It was for the point guards, it was Derrick Rose was the first one where it's like, wow, Derrick Rose is almost completely finished. You almost can't make a card better than this Derrick Rose card. And for the 2 guards, Kobe was the first one where he had Intimidator and Range Extender and all this other stuff. And I said it on stream, the only thing you can do to these cards is make them taller and faster. Once these cards are taller and faster, there's nowhere to go. So if you think that you have, you know, and I know the community is really going to disagree with this tremendously, but if you think that you have a significant, and I'm saying significant, advantage because you have Galaxy Opal whoever and the other guy has Diamond Kobe Bryant, for instance, you're not at a significant advantage. You're at a slight advantage. And depending on your play style, that advantage might be more than slight. It might be completely insignificant. Because again, you're playing against a card that has gold range extender and you know, Intimidator of his own, and he's got a decent speed. He's got great shot ratings. You know, it's like over 90 with coaching boosts and stuff like that. Like, it's a good card. So all of the differences between these cards, it really comes down more to animations and just overall ratings, like things like height, their build, their wingspan. It comes down to that stuff much more so than it comes down to the card color. And I think that's been a problem with the MyTeam community for a while, is that they look at card color. They look at card color and assume that a card is better or worse based off of that. And for me, that's why I do my videos, is because I think the animations, the height, the athleticism is what separates things at this point in the year, because they juice the general statistics like shooting and defense early in the year. We've been on 90 plus defense, 90 plus shooting, 90 plus speed for a while for most of the archetypes in the game. So now the centers are catching up. Now the centers are starting to get into 90 speed with like Dino Raja and stuff like that. So, and again, same thing. If you think you have Galaxy Opal, whoever, I mean, Patrick Ewing, you could throw a lot of cards out there, Kevin Garnett, and this guy has Pink Diamond Dino Raja, or even to a degree, Diamond Bam Bam, Bam Adebayo. You think that you're at a significant advantage. You're not. There's nothing in your card that gives you an advantage over those cards. That is about skill. And if a Bam Adebayo user faces a Kevin Garnett user, a Galaxy Opal Kevin Garnett user, and the Bam Adebayo user is better, he's probably going to win. There's nothing about the KG card that neutralizes the effect of the Bam Adebayo card. He can speed boost, he's got range extender, he's got a whole bunch of juice stats. He's a really good card. So I don't even think that the argument about card tiers is valid unless you are specifically talking about bronze, silver, and gold cards. I would even throw emerald cards in there versus diamond and above. Because the gap between... Because once you get to ruby cards, you start getting to really good cards that you can play on a top tier team, right? DiVincenzo's a good card. Thon Maker's a good card. Yeah, they have minor weaknesses, but they are minor weaknesses. Jeff Green is an elite card missing range extender, right? So if somebody comes up to you with an all ruby squad, especially today, if their squad is all rubies and amethysts and your squad is all galaxy opals and they're better than you, they not only could beat you, but they could blow you out because their entire squad can have clamps, range extender, intimidator, speed, height. Like if you put your team together the right way, you can basically have everything without even having a galaxy opal or even a pink diamond on your team. And if you throw one of the overpowered pink diamonds on that team, you know, like a Pistol Pete who could really cook, or again Dino Raja who's just a complete unicorn super mutant demigod in this game, like we say, oh, this guy doesn't have as good of a team, but that margin between their team and your team is so much slimmer than the skill margin might be. And I'm not just saying, oh, it all 100% comes down to skill, you suck and blah blah blah. What I am saying is, once you account for the randomness and the skill component, how much room is left for their randomizer to have an effect, and what would that randomizer have to do, right? Really, like how many shots would the randomizer have to affect in order to predictably give the experience that you think this dynamic multiplayer dynamic difficulty is supposed to give, right? And now that you know how many shots between, again, the skill factor, and also how long does 2K take to figure out the skill between the two opponents, because there's no skill-based matchmaking in the game, right? The closest thing they come to matchmaking is card-based, and they're pretty bad at that. So the matchmaking is kind of almost non-existent. And with the bare minimum of matchmaking that they have, they're not matching you up by skill at all, and they're, just by the loosest definition of the term, matching you up according to cards, because I've seen regularly people have 4 points of overall difference between matchups. And in this game, the difference between a 92 team and a 96 team can be absolutely enormous, right? And that's not even throwing in overall cheesers and what they're trying to do. So you bring all of that into the equation with the randomness, with the skill gap, and then say incorporate player style, incorporate skill in terms of shot releases. The normalization of the 2K experience is so shaky. Right now, I've seen a lot of you guys gameplay. A lot of times people say, and listen, I'm just keep it real with y'all, right? A lot of times y'all say full white and it's actually a slight bounce back, or it's actually significantly early. Full whites aren't as common as people think. Like, if people get alarmed at basically every full white, people have like a 2 full white tolerance. After 2 full whites, 90% of y'all think 2K is screwing you, right? And you guys don't, and here's the thing about the MyTeam community, and I do come from the Park and the Pro-Am community. The Park and Pro-Am community usually uses 1 or 2 jumpers for the entire year, right? And they will fall out of the green window of one jumper and switch to another just because they feel like maybe the lag isn't working with them or what have you. If you play MyTeam, you use maybe over 100 jumpers throughout the year. So if you are using that many jumpers, unless you guys are all way better than the Park community and way better than the Pro-Am community, it is impossible for you to master your 100 jump shots more than the Park and the Pro-Am community manages their 1 jump shot. Then they master their 1 or 2 jump shots, right? So And guys, I hate to break it to you, but if you think that you're better than the players in the Pro-Am and Park community, you're not. Okay? The MyTeam community is, no offense, probably the least skilled community out of all of the 2K communities. Right? That's why I started to say, that's why I started to make videos showing the MyTeam community certain techniques, because the MyTeam community, I'm like, it's crazy that people are they're streaming and they're popular streamers, and when they stop to pull up, they're not doing a hesitation, they're not doing a behind the back, they're not doing a speed boost quick shot, they're bringing the ball between their legs like 20 frames of animation before they pull up for their jump shot. That's insane to me, right? And that's what the community is doing. And this is not me dragging on the MyTeam community, right? I'm not part I'm part of the My Team community. I'm not exclusively part of the park community. And I, as a park pro-am player, have a ways to go before I feel like I'm a good My Team player. So this is not me dragging on the My Team community's skills. This is me trying to get you guys to look at your skills honestly, right? And if you have 10 cards that you just put into your deck because they just had this new drop, there's no way that you mastered. Like, no one has Luka Doncic's shot completely mastered. He just came out. You're telling me you have Luka Doncic's shot mastered to the same effect that poor boy Sin has his pure playmaker shot mastered? No way. It's like physically impossible, right? You would have to be twice as good as poor boy Sin, and he's one of the best players in the entire community. That's probably not true. So now that you know, well, since every time I use a new card, let me give myself a week or two before I can honestly say I'm releasing green releases almost all the time. At least a week or two with that card. Then you can take all of the new cards off the table. If somebody's playing with a new card that just dropped this week or last week and they're crying about full whites, really look at the footage, man. Those aren't full whites. That's not EQ. For EQ to even take effect, you would have to be so consistent when it comes to the shooting, right? You would have to be so consistent that it's like the computer would say, not only has he gotten 10 greens in a row, but he's going to get 10 more. And I need to slow him down so that this other person feels like they're in the game. Guys, come on. Come on. That is not it, right? If you are of average skill, your problem is skill. If you are of slightly above average skill, your problem is skill. And if you are of below average skill, clearly your problem is skill. Now, I'm not saying that the randomness won't screw you out of wins. That's very, very important. You know what I'm saying? Like, if the randomness feels the worst, the closest to the middle you are. Because that means you're going to lose to a whole bunch of people who are just a little bit worse than you. And you're going to lose to people who are a little bit better than you in games you feel like you should have won. And then you're going to beat people who are a little bit better than you in games you're like, I shouldn't have won that game. I got pretty lucky. That's randomizer. If you don't think that that's randomizer, you don't know what random means. Random means random. Random means you might get 3 full whites in a row that miss and 3 heavily contested shots in a row that go in. That's randomness. It kicks out those results sometimes. What controls those results is you either consistently shooting very poorly and being a bad player, or consistently shooting very well and being a good player. And that's why I stress the importance of the hesitation shot, because the hesitation shot gives you the same exact timing on your jumper every single time, right? Even the what do you call it? The quote unquote peekaboo, the behind the back, that doesn't give you the same exact timing. You have to have a little bit of skill to get that shot perfect, because depending on when you make the ball quote unquote disappear, that will change your timing. Sometimes you could do a little late, sometimes you could do a little early. Whereas off of the hezzy jumper, the jump shot is like almost exactly the same timing every single time. So it's like, if you're struggling in this game to hit open shots, if you're not stopping at the right time, this shot is a shot you can master and almost get the same result every time. If you're catching and shooting, the players have animations that change their catch and shoot speed. It changes their gather speed. Depending on where they pick the ball up, it changes the timing of the shot. So you have to have the top of the shot mastered, and you have to have the kind of connection that doesn't screw up what's going on there. And the reason I bring all of this up is because that provides control. You know what I'm saying? That provides control. Because if an equalizer is going to step in, it has to be able to rely on you to either be a terrible scrub or to be an elite player. So the players most likely to be subject to an equalizer are the Ty Debos and RCA the Greats of the world, who are consistently shooting wide open shots at a high level, because the EQ can say, okay, I need to bring that guy in so this other person has a chance. If you're only shooting greens 2 out of every 10 shots, the equalizer can't rely on you to nerf you. Does that make sense? Because you're not a stable control. So that's it for the shooting. When it comes to the animation, there are just too many animation situations for the equalizer to say, oh, well, now I'm going to screw him here. Guys, My biggest problem with 2K is how imprecise of a game it is. It is one of the most imprecise games on the market. It is the least viable competitive game that I can think of personally. And what you're claiming it has is the most precise dynamic difficulty tool on the market. I think you guys are giving 2K way too much credit. Like 2K is going to precisely say, you know what? This layup right here is the one that's going to get him. Are you insane? Have you not met 2K? Everything in 2K is super random, super scrubby, super. In fact, all the exploits in 2K have to do with reducing all of the crazy defensive recovery in the game. That's 90% of the game. I want to get you into a Hall of Fame brick wall scream, so you can't do anything. Last year it was I want to get you into ankle breaker animation, so you can't zoom over to me and get this scrubby defense, special edge, short bus handicap help to allow you to play defense in a situation where you were completely beat. I need an ankle breaker, because if I don't get an ankle breaker, even if I have you completely beat, you could just slam your body into me and stop me from getting a wide open layup. Or even if I get a wide open layup, you're going to get turbo boost, rocket man up into the rim, even though you were beat because of the speed of the 2P animations. So all of the tactics at a high level, literally all of them, have to do with negating the overpowered defensive band-aids in this game. And you guys are telling me that in that world of chaos, this quote-unquote algorithm is like, you know what? He shot 2 greens in a row. I'm going to give him a full white now. That's not realistic. In the world where randomizer also exists. If the game wasn't random, if there was no randomness in the game, I'd be right with you. I'd be like, there's no way. This guy shot 5 wide open shots, and they were all green releases, and somehow 2 of them didn't go in. He should have gotten 5 greens. We know for a fact that you don't get 100% of your perfect releases. And if you're telling me that you're not an elite player, but you shoot the ball 100% perfect every time, obviously you don't know what elite means, right? Only elite players release the ball perfectly all the time. And in my team, you don't just have to be elite with one player, you have to be elite with a 10-man rotation of cards that you're switching in and out constantly. That's not realistic, guys. That's not what's happening. What's happening is, and again, this is going with when people said there's no definitive proof that there's no randomizer, that's only if you're going to call the developers liars and throw their reasons out the window, right? So my thing is, I do take the word of the several developers that have spoken on this subject, and they say there's no algorithm or randomizer in the game that is tailored to keep you even. Because it's random, sometimes you'll be even when you don't deserve to be, and sometimes you'll be uneven when you deserve to be more even, because that's the nature of the randomizer. And you're going, just like in real life basketball, the Milwaukee Bucks don't win every game. The LA Lakers don't win every game, because sometimes shots just don't go in. And 2K wants to be close enough to the spirit of that to say sometimes bad shots go in and good shots don't, right? And here's the problem with shooting. I was actually going to make a separate video on this. Here's the problem with shooting in 2K. The only way to get people to spend their money on cards is to give them 99s and everything, including shooting, right? If they, first of all, Jason Battle, why don't you relax, bro? Why don't you relax? I didn't bring up the Warriors for a reason. I kid. But and actually I would bring up the Warriors with KD as more of a thing because they have so much talent. But the thing is, with a 99 rated shooter, the only way for a 99 rated shooter to feel good is if their margin of error when they're wide open is a lot wider than a bad shooter. And the fact of the matter is that in 2K, if you're a 75 rated 3-point shooter and you're a 95 rated 3-point shooter, your experience in the corner is virtually identical. And by virtually identical, I mean if you guys both shoot 5 corner threes, you can both go 4 of 5 with the same exact releases, right? The 95 rated guy has more of a chance of not missing 2 out of those 5 than the 75 rated guy. But that's the nature of 2K. is much more based on release than rating. And the problem in my team is because everybody has basically a 99.3, especially this season when they blew the game up super early, because everybody has a 99 rated 3, there's no way for them to make it feel good that you have a good shooter and also have the game have any kind of balance. Because literally every shot will go in no matter how you released it, because it's a 99 shot. Like if you have a 99 rated 3-point shot, you should be able to get a slightly early and still have it go in fairly often, right? Pedro Neve says in badges and even jump shot bases. Yeah, I'm including all of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? And that's the other thing, right? You take a 99 shooter with Hall of Fame everything, catch and shoot, corner, hot zones, green machine. They would never miss if there was no randomizer, right? And that's not even including dead eye, having people closing out on them. There's no way to make shooters feel good until the community grows up and becomes okay with missing shots, right? The community has to develop to the point where they're like, I have a 75 rated shooter. This may or may not go in when I'm shooting a 3. So this is a risk. Let me get a better shot. But the community is not like that. The community is very pampered and spoiled. And they want every open shot to go in. And like literally almost everybody I've seen play this game cries like babies when open shots don't go in. And so the 2K developers have no choice but to feel like you guys can't handle, you know, missing shots at but so much of a clip. So people with a 75 rated shot shoot way better than they're supposed to. And that means that people with a 95 rated shot, even though their shot ratings are probably totally fine the way they are, the making 60% of your open shots is totally consistent with what you would expect from a video game representation of your Klay Thompsons and Steph Curry. They're not supposed to hit every shot because those guys don't hit every shot in the game. But it doesn't feel right because the 75 rated guys are too high. And at the same time, where's the defense coming in all this? Are you guarding bad defense by having people miss too many shots? Oh, I don't have to guard a 3-point line because it's going to be totally random if the shot goes in. So it's very, very difficult to balance the shooting, especially when you mix in the MyTeam community, which is using, again, hundreds of cards throughout the year, right? Literally, they're using hundreds of cards throughout the year with different releases, different badges, different ratings, and they're all going to have inconsistency in that performance. And you're going to say, with this tremendous level of inconsistency, this algorithm, this equalizer knows exactly how to touch your game up to make you want to play it more. Guys, 2K is not precise enough for that. Other games might be precise enough for that. Not 2K. Not 2K. Now, I'm very open. I'm very open to anybody who has solid proof of an equalizer being in the game, but just keep in mind that the forms of evidence that we have a few forms of evidence that there's no equalizer. The primary form of evidence above everything else is the people who stream the game. They stream full games on a very, very regular basis, and from observing those games, usually the better person wins. And there's, if you include the idea of a randomizer, you know, it is what it is. So Randolph Truitt says it's not an equalizer per second, it's sliders. You're saying that 2K moves the sliders up and down, and they only move them up and down for one person? Well, we know that there's a heat up and cool down system in the game, and there's also randomness in the game, right? So we know that the performance of players is moving slightly back and forth here and there. Before an equalizer or sliders to be trying to balance the game, they would have to move them in the opposite direction that they're going. You know what I'm saying? They'd have to move them in the opposite direction. So they would be saying, even though you're playing bad and you're getting cold, I'm going to make you make shots so that you feel more even, so you don't feel discouraged about playing the game. And that's where I go back to the streamers, because I see streamers discouraging people all the time. Right? Streamers, in fact, the people who are most upset about the recent change to the system where you can't quit out of games are the very bad players who come up against streamer quality people and the streamers who come up against very bad players, because they can rely on blowing out their opponent so consistently that they're like, the answer to the best part about blowing out an opponent is that they're going to quit. And I know it's going to happen all the time, which means I might be able to get this 12-0 done in an hour and a half instead of 7 hours. Right? So if blowouts are happening that consistently, there's no equalizer there. And if it is an equalizer, it's not doing a very good job. Right? If people are quitting in the first quarter, they're not doing a very good job. And yeah, Randolph Truitt, and when you give me your example, make sure that your example accounts for the randomness of the game. So your example has to be an example that is impervious to being explained away by randomness. That's like probably the number one thing I was saying all of this. So first piece of evidence is the streamers, because you can watch these full games, and if you watch the games, if you believe that there's an equalizer in their games, all you have to do is go to a game or a stream archive that you remember it from. There's plenty on YouTube from RCA the Great. There's plenty on Twitch from Ty Debo and guys like that. Splash Edition and whatever. Just show me that, and I'll be happy to look at that footage and look at the time stamps, and you say the randomizer kicks in here. And I'll look at it and go, oh yeah, that is really weird. Let's discuss why is this happening. This is even more, this is beyond the randomizer. This is the equalizer. Right? So that's number one. Number two, the developers not only say that there's no equalizer in the game, but from a technical standpoint, they describe why. And this is one thing I really caution against with the community. When the developer takes time out of their day, these are not all PR guys, right? Some of these guys are just people who literally sit in front of a computer and type numbers into the thing and turn it into a basketball game. So when they take time out of their day to explain to you why something is or is not in the game on a technical basis, and you just say, I'm emotionally having this experience, so I'm going to throw all that away. I'm going to throw that out. Who cares? To a degree, you disqualify yourself from the conversation. Because what you now need to do is you need to come up with a technical response to their explanation. You can't say, well, I just feel this is happening because the last time I played, I got this terrible block animation, and there's no way that would happen if you guys didn't have an equalizer. You're lying. That's not a scientific response, right? They're saying, kind of like what I explained today, if you look at all of the integrated systems of 2K, it's not feasible for us to put an equalizer in the game. The randomness in the game acts as an equalizer, or feels like it acts as an equalizer, because that's literally how randomness works. And if we don't have randomness in the game feels too robotic and it doesn't feel like basketball. So it's our decision to have some randomness in the game. Now, at that point, you can say, is the game too random? I would say yes. The game is too random, right? The game isn't consistent enough. There are too many situations where even just walking around with the player, you don't know what animation you're going to get. Right? So I agree with you that the game is too random. And I agree with you that sometimes the randomness works against your favor, and that feels really, really bad. But at the same time, the randomness is still a sufficient explanation for most of what people are seeing. The equalizer would have to be more powerful than the randomizer, right? And so I need to see evidence for that. And so far, I haven't seen a shred of evidence for that. Keep in mind, 2K is not as simple as a fighting game. It's not as simple as a first-person shooter. It is a lot of integrated systems. In fact, another way I would say simple is it's not as clean. It's a messier game. We can all agree that 2K is a messier competitive game than Rainbow Six Siege and Overwatch. You know what I mean? Like, we all know that, right? And CSGO, and again, and Tekken, right? Like, it's messier than all of those games. So if you were going to put a randomizer in any of those games, you could say, if somebody's on a hot streak, I'm going to increase their bullet spread, right? And now it would be that simple, because you would detect the hot streak and you throw in a bullet spread and you're done, because the shooting's never random, right? The bullet spread is the only place that you can apply randomness in those games. But in 2K, everything's random. So for you to have an equalizer, you would have to add something to a random thing. Do you guys understand that? Like, equalizers only work in a consistent environment. Equalizers don't work in a random environment. And 2K is not just inconsistent in terms of skills. It's not just random in terms of shot percentages. It's also inconsistent in terms of the skill level of its players. The skill gap between the worst MyTeam player and the best MyTeam player is enormous. The skill gap between the best MyTeam players and the best Park players is fairly big. And the skill gap between, you know, the Pro-Am players and the MyTeam players is also its own kind of skill gap, right? I mean, no offense to, I have nothing against any of those guys, but if you guys watch that all-star team up, I don't have to say anymore. And y'all know what I'm talking about, right? That didn't exactly look like Bucks Gaming versus, you know, Power DF. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is, man. I'm going to I like to hesitate before I call a developer a liar. And before you guys go in on like Ronnie2k is not a developer. Ronnie2k is a PR guy. I'll call a PR guy a liar in a heartbeat. But when developers, for the most part, are just hardworking folks, especially when it's not their job to talk to you, right? And 2K has notoriously low, shabby guidelines for how their developers are allowed and empowered to talk to you. They can basically say whatever they want in this regard and not talk about something in that regard. And to explain it to you, the developers can actually explain a lot of things from a technical perspective. They can give you their opinions, but if something has to do with the monetization of the game, you'll notice they never talk about that. And if something has to do with somebody else's department, they try not to throw each other under the bus, right? So if they shy away from talking about something, it could be like you talking to developer Bobby, and Bobby works on the dribbling. And you'll be like, Bobby, why is it when I'm facing a dribbler, I can't guard this move? And Bobby's real answer would be, well, Janine works on defense and she's trash this year, right? So when Janine is supposed to give you the ability to guard that move, she didn't do her job right. So you're screwed. They can't say that, obviously, because then they're sitting down with Janine and HR like, why are you making life hard for everybody here? So instead, they'll say something like, we're addressing the issue, right? They'll say something like, we'll look into it. Or they don't respond at all, because you have to be somewhat politically responsible when you're part of a team, right? So when it comes to developers, it doesn't serve them to outright lie about something that's technical. And when they describe why there's no algorithm or equalizer in the game, they discuss it on a technical basis. They don't say this is why this is how we feel about an equalizer in the game. They basically tell you it's a random game with 100 billion systems in it, and putting an equalizer in the game is just one more thing that we would have to patch. And we want to patch as little things as possible. We want to be working on the next 2K game as soon as possible. What we want to do is put out a perfect 2K and not talk to you guys for 12 months, right? But that's not what happens, because we're in a short development cycle and we're holding this thing together with bubble gum and duct tape. So we know that there's a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to have to fix. We don't want to put something in the game that we're also going to have to fix when it doesn't really serve us, because that thing that you're asking for in the game is already facilitated by the randomness that's already programmed into the game. And since most of you guys stink at our game anyway, and most of you guys never learn how to play, we wouldn't need a randomizer, because your own lack of skill or improvement of skill will give you the performance you're looking for. Justin, so Justin Joliffe says 2K would never admit their schemes to max profits. Okay, so here's the thing. You're thinking that the randomizer maxes profits. I would counter by saying the 2K has a lot of things in place to maximize profits, and the equalizer, I said randomizer, the equalizer is not the thing that they would need to rely on. Okay, that having been said, if I don't believe an EQ exists, I probably believe Oswald shot JFK. Please just show me footage of the equalizer in play, show me when it's happening, and prove to me that that is not also the randomizer, right? Show me the randomizer behaving properly, because we know that the game is random. We already know that, right? So that having been said, with knowing that the game is random, now as a control, now show me what the EQ looks like and exactly what the EQ is doing, and how it's working. You need to prove your side of the argument. Okay? So the thing is, like, when we talk about the JFK thing, you've got, you know, bullets bouncing, and this thing came in that way, and grassy knoll, and why was George Bush over here, and why did the mafia talk to this guy the day before? I got you. So-and-so was a communist, but he wasn't over here, the blah, blah, blah. He couldn't hit the shot. I'm with you. Give me that version of your EQ. Because right now, all I'm hearing is I played a game and I feel bad. And let me tell you something. If you chose to play 2K, you chose to feel bad. Because 2K is not a very strong game. Alright? So when we play in 2K, we all feel bad at some point. At some point, we are bored, we're salty, we're angry, we're frustrated because we're playing 2K. Alright? You should be playing, you know, CSGO or Rocket League or Overwatch. A good game. Right? You should be playing a good game. But you chose to play a bad game. So now that you chose to play a bad game, you get to feel bad. You chose bad, you feel bad. But that feeling bad is not proof. Give me proof. Yeah, Jason Battle says, when I'm playing the show, I'm having a great time. Because it's a great game. You chose well. You chose to play a good game. So now you're having a good time. You chose to play a bad game, now you're having a bad time. Right? You shot a full white. You shot perfectly. You got wide open. It didn't go in. You chose to play 2K. It is what it is. Do I play the show 20? I'm about to start playing the show 20 soon. I wanted to do a full season in the show 19 to get used to the game because I never played the show before, but I love the game. I've been playing 19 on a fairly regular basis. Almost every day, I've at least gotten some batting in. Sometimes I'll skip a day here and there because of work and doing At Me Bro stuff. But yeah, I've been in there. And also doing Operation Sports videos, guys. I'm an Operation Sports video content producer, so make sure you subscribe to the Operation Sports YouTube channel as well. But yeah, man, if you guys feel there's a randomizer, equalizer, I'm not necessarily against you, but what I'm doing is I'm setting the stage for you to provide good proof, right? Because hey, I'm open to the idea that you pull the mask off the guy's head at the end of Scooby-Doo. You find the guy on a grassy knoll, conspiracy uncovered. The devs were lying all this time. They hoodwinked and bamboozled us. We didn't land on the equalizer landed on us, right? I got you. I'm just saying this is the stage for which you need to set up your proof, right? Your proof requires you to have a consistent skill level first and foremost with the things that are random so that your skill can push the randomness to the edges, because if you're random and the game is random, then the whole thing is random and the equalizer can't affect that random. It's impossible to see the equalizer. It's like a needle in a haystack. You know what I'm saying? Andrew M asks, I don't think there's rubber banding in 2K20. Please be specific about the rubber banding, because when we play bums in Pro-Am, they don't rubber band. When we play bums in Park, they don't rubber band. When I'm playing the AI on Hall of Fame difficulty, they don't rubber band. I mean, they might make a run, but they don't like rubber band for a win. The Hall of Fame difficulty AI relies almost exclusively on exploits and BS to win. So is exploits and BS happening? Yeah, but I don't think it's rubber banding. I don't think it's based on when I get a lead. When I get a blowout, they put in their subs and they take the L. So please specify how the game does rubber banding. Because if you're talking about a racing game, I can tell you how the game does rubber banding. It says, screw the car that person is in. That car gets super speed so that they catch up to you and give you a better race. That rubber banding exists, and I agree. What specifically, how does rubber banding manifest in 2K? And when does it manifest? What's the cue for it? And what proof do you have? All right? Because when I'm watching Ty Debo play, man, his opponents be all out of rubber bands. His opponents be all out of rubber bands. You said you have screenshots of teams not missing. Screenshots is not ample proof. I need to see the shots that they took, who they took the shots with, right? Now, if you took 4 corner 3-pointers with DeAndre Jordan and you can give me 2 games where he goes 4 for 4 with the unevolved DeAndre Jordan, I can go, that's alarming, right? But a randomizer suggests that there are going to be some quarters in some games where people make everything, and there's going to be some where people miss everything. And sometimes when they miss everything, you go, oh man, they should have made some of those shots. And sometimes when they make everything, you go, oh man, they shouldn't have made some of those shots. But when you put in the consistency of high skill or the consistency of low skill, what happens is that consistency pushes the randomness to the edges. You know what I'm saying? So you go, right, smothered shots can go in. So you go, okay, they hit 2 smothered shots, but I smothered them all game, so they only hit 2 shots, right? That's the thing. If you smother them all game, they're not going to score 0 points. They're going to still score some points because you're playing an NBA game, and sometimes NBA players make ridiculous, crazy shots, right? So they're trying to somewhat replicate that. Are they doing a good job? That's out for the jury. Well, again, they can say that there's an algorithm. There is an algorithm in the game. There are plenty of algorithms in the game. There's plenty of algorithms and randomness in the game. I agree. All right? But now, I've watched a lot of Ty Debo recently. I like his streams. Shout out to him. But most of the time, when Ty Debo misses shots, what he says is, that's me. Gotta bounce back. I sold my release. And my thing is, once you sell 5 releases in a game, the EQ is out the window because there's time left for the randomness to kick in, right? If you take 10 shots and you were random for 5 of them with your releases, and then you were consistent for the other 5 shots, you still have the randomness in those other 5 shots to throw you off. So most people think, well, I released kind of bad for 5 shots. I went 1 for 4. But then I released really good for for the next 5 shots. I should go 4 for 5. Nah, the randomness might make you go 3 for 5, right? And if you're really unlucky, it might even make you go 2 for 5. And so you went 3 for 10, and you shot 50% of your shots pretty good. Yeah, so you have to shoot all of your shots really good, and then you'll go 7 for 10 virtually all the time. And when you don't go 7 for 10, the worst you'll do is 6 for 10, and the best you'll do is 10 for 10. Right? And Ty Debo is one of the best players in the world. And I'm telling you right now, he doesn't release all his shots perfectly. Right? And it's not his fault. It's because he's playing my team. Right? Like if I talk to you about, say, King Dooms, he releases most of his shots perfectly because he's only playing with one character all year. He's playing with one jump shot all year. So once he gets the jump shot, he's just practicing the same shot every day. Ty Debo is pulling in new cards. He's playing with different decks. He's getting cold on a card, getting warm on a card, right? Using this person's account. Oh, okay, they got RJ Barrett and Cam Reddish. I'm going to use them. Oh, okay, they got Brandon Roy and T-Mac. I'm going to use them, right? So there's no way any human is skilled enough at this point in 2K's development to have the releases of every card in the game perfect. Do I think Opal Luka is worth it? Absolutely not. I don't think he's a bad card, but he's just way too overpriced right now. That card is 130. I'd pay for that card maybe. Probably not a cent more. And I think he's a good card, but his spot is just way too competitive. And even though some of the cards I named, you might say, well, they're not as good for this reason and that reason, they're close enough that there's no reason to pick him up. So you got Jamal Crawford, who's cheaper. You've got James Harden, who's free. It's a long grind, but it's free. You got Galaxy Opal, Zach LaVine, who's free. So yeah, I don't think. And then you even got Justice Winslow. Again, I don't think Justice Winslow is as good as the Luka Doncic card, but is he 200K worse? No, he's not. The quarters with 8 out of 8 threes with no greens from your opponent and you don't make anything does present an interesting discussion between realism and comp gameplay, though. Well, Alex Campbell, my thing with that is I've watched a lot of RCA the Great, a bit of Splash Edition, and a pretty good amount of Ty Debo, and I have not seen that in their streams. And so here's the other thing about the equalizer question. That's the burden of proof is on you guys. How often does the equalizer kick in? It just kicks in sometimes for some people, right? What makes Ty and other comp players win at such a high rate? What do we know that? What do we know? What do they know that we don't? I would say the number one thing is they play the game enough to pick up on the tendencies of their opponents and make them uncomfortable. That's the number one thing. And also, they're comfortable enough with their own offense to know what kind of looks that they're generating. All right? Books has also watched Spatial Jones. I have also watched Spatial Jones. I can tell you, he always loses for the same reason. He tries to dunk on people when he ain't supposed to. It's always the reason he loses, 100% of the time. What's some of the best point guards in terms of animations? Pistol Pete is way up there. Dwayne Wade has a lot of good animations. He has a few that aren't very good. Westbrook is 50-50. Crawford is missing a good step back, but a lot of the rest of his animations are good. I like a lot of Steph Curry's animations a whole lot. As a dribbler, Ron Harper basically has every perfect dribble. Obviously, he doesn't have range extender, which is unfortunate. If he had range extender, he'd probably be at a good point. He'd probably start for me if he had range extender, Ron Harper. There's probably some I'm forgetting off the top of my head. You asked for it, Spag. You asked for a shout out. I shouted you out. I don't understand what the problem is. But alright, guys. Unless y'all have something else, that is my challenge to you. My challenge to you is specify your evidence for the randomizer. Tell me when it's happening. Give me evidence of it's happening. And include the randomizer of both the game itself, 2K, and of the player in terms of skill. And once that randomness is accounted for, then describe for me what and how the EQ is taking place. And also, I need somewhat of a technical answer of how it applies to the areas that you think it's applying to. All right? So that is going to do it. Yo, first of all, thank you guys for rocking with me with this discussion. I enjoyed it very much. I hope you got something out of it too. Please like and subscribe. And I will see you all in the next one. Before I go, when do I think we're getting another token market update? I don't know. But we're probably due, because the last thing we got was the Spotlight Sims, and that's getting to be a little while ago. And a lot of those token cards are getting a little long in the tooth. I'm hoping they throw some new pink diamonds out there, because the last batch of pink diamonds was a huge W with RJ, Embiid, and Beasley, who are all good cards. I'm about to get D'Lo now. So I'm going to do a deep dive on D'Lo very shortly. Throw him on my Nets team so I can play the theme teams versus my homies. But yeah, guys, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you all in the next one. Have a great day. Stay happy and healthy. And peace.